Shalom, ladies, and welcome to our fifth episode, whatever we want to call it, of Coffee and Connection. It's great to see you here. Moshe's here, Toby's here, Adel's here, Rachel's here, Anne's here, Shosh is here, Sip is here. Let's see who else I can see. Oh, all these great. Beth, hey, Beth. Oh my goodness. It is awesome to see you all here. Um, you did Chana. Great to see your name on here. Amazing. Okay, great. And hi to all the other amazing women who are on here. It's great to have you back. And it's awesome to be here with you. So, today's topic is a great one. I actually have a very funny story to share today. Um, so, and I'm just going to illustrate it with this. Let's just start with the story. So, basically, today, in one of with my in my clients group, we a woman shared a woman shared how she struggles because her husband often buys new things instead of returning them. So I'm just going to find it because her husband buys new things instead of returning them, and she said, I really struggle because it makes me so frustrated. Like, why is he buying these new things when he could just return it? um Hold on, I asked her permission before I shared this. So so you don't think that, of course, I value my clients and their privacy very much. So she said she's very frustrated and she thinks she's going to lose her mind sometimes from the money that he is spending. So I said to her, this does sound very frustrating. Why do you think he struggles to fix things? Like, why doesn't he fix things? Right. So I was inviting her to use some empathy here to get curious. And her response was, I would assume that, quote, because he's a man baby who refuses to take responsibility for himself and blames everyone around him for anything that gets lost or broken, end quote, is the wrong answer. And I responded, laughing emoji, laughing emoji, laughing emoji, laughing emoji. Can I please use this on Coffee and Connection? Because if you checked your email box, that's exactly what we're talking about tonight, right? So and she said yes. So Baruch Hashem, you all get to benefit from that, right? That's a little bit the benefits here of group coaching, how you get to benefit from each other's experiences, you get to benefit from each other's coaching, get to benefit from each other's questions. So here, what was going on, right? Here is the classic, what were you thinking? What was he thinking? How could he have made that decision? And, these are the questions that can plague us multiple times a day because we look around and we look at our husband's choices and we look at his actions and we're saying, honestly, what the heck? Like, what is going on? How could you make that choice? Right? Shoshana's nodding her head. She's with me on this. Okay. So Moshe's also nodding her head. Everyone's with me. Devoree's smiling. Toby's smiling. Everyone's understanding what I'm talking about, right? So what do we do? What do we do? So the very first thing that I'm going to start with here is remembering that when I'm looking at my husband's actions and saying, what were you thinking? That's the most ridiculous thing. I can't believe someone actually made that decision. We are looking at their choice through our lens, right? Through our eyes, through our brain, because I'm going to make an assumption here that your husband is not an idiot. Okay. I'm going to make an assumption that he's not just making stupid decisions all day long, right? And that he can't figure out how to put a kid to bed or pay the taxes or deal with his job or wash a dish or, add on, buy a phone, add on to that all the million things throughout our married life that we're thinking, how could you have made that? Why did you do that? Right? And let's assume that he's not an idiot. So then the question is, you can flip it and recognize, instead of looking at it as, what were you thinking? You can start to get curious. You can start to get empathetic. right? This is where you can use empathy and try to understand, hmm, what is he thinking? Right? What is he thinking? Because again, when we are in that that's crazy mindset, we're coming with an assumption that I am right. I know how to do this. My way is the only way, right? And if you're not doing it my way, then it must be wrong, right? If it's not my way, then it must be wrong. And what I'm inviting you to remind yourself, yes, constantly on a regular basis, is that different doesn't make it wrong. Different doesn't make it wrong because we all have different ways of thinking, different ways of doing things, different ways of processing things. And just because my husband does it differently doesn't mean that his way of doing it is wrong. He's doing it that way because that's what he perceives to be the best choice of action. And it may be very different than yours. And that, again, it doesn't make it wrong. So, what can we do in these situations is really start to get curious. Hmm, right? Like this emoji. Right? That's my favorite emoji. Let's get curious. Let's get curious. Why would he make that decision? Just like we have to sometimes do for ourselves, right? We lose it, we get angry, we're sitting on the couch, we don't want to do anything, we say something not nice, and we're like, why did I do that? Why did I say that? What's going on for me? The same way that we can gift ourselves with being with giving ourselves empathy, we can give empathy to our husband and anyone else that we don't understand. Right? So, what does empathy for your husband mean? It means actually, and this is really the concept of Bina, right? The feminine energy, is we want to look at the situation and say, let me try to understand this from his perspective. What's going on for him, right? Why would he make that choice? Why would he choose, let's say, to buy a new one rather than fix it? Why would he choose to put the kids to bed that way? Why would he choose to make that decision in his business? Why would he choose to talk to someone in a not nice way? Now, the answer, it could be, sometimes the answer is going to be he doesn't know. Sometimes the answer is going to be because of his own stuff that he has going on, right? And that's what I was inviting my client to think about over here. Does he have some issue? Is there something for him that comes up when he thinks of fixing something, when he thinks of having to deal with that? Right? Or maybe it's something totally different. Maybe he looks at his time and he thinks, well, if I have to fix it, it's going to take me this amount of time and this amount of energy and this amount of frustration, and it still won't be top notch. It's still going to be refurbished and fixed. Maybe he sees it as worth his time and effort and energy and money to buy a new one, right? Maybe that's the way his family always did it. Maybe he was taught as a kid, always make sure you have it the best. Or maybe the opposite. Maybe his family was never buying new things, always making things work when they were broken, and he hated that. And he said, "No. When I get older, he created this belief for himself that he should whenever he can buy something new." It could be a million things. That's what I'm going to invite you to start to consider. When your husband does something that's making you crazy, rather than assuming that you rather than assuming that your way of seeing it is the way, remember that he's doing his actions based on his way, his perception, right? His way of understanding things. And start to shift to that. And then what are you doing? It's an amazing thing. Not only are you not getting frustrated in that moment, right? Not only are you not yelling and screaming and complaining and crying and, you know, yelling at him in that moment, but on top of that, you're going to be getting to know him better. You're going to be getting to understand him better. And that is the essence of a loving relationship. How do you create love? How do you create love? By knowing someone, by understanding them, right? By understanding where they're coming from. The more I know him, the more I can love him. And part of the way you really get to know someone is you start to understand how their brain works, right? When you understand how someone's brain works, that's how you can really form a deep connection with them. Now, I'm not inviting you here to start mind reading your husband all the time because that's not good either. But instead, to actually look to understand, which might mean sometimes asking questions, right? I just had this with my husband on Friday. I put on the list meats, right? We're making a chillin'. My vegetarian daughter wasn't going to be home for Shabbos. So we're making chillin'. Woohoo! So I put on the list meat. Now I'm thinking I'm so excited for those big chunks of meat. I don't want to eat too much of like the heart, too early in the morning. I don't want to eat all that like chillin' stuff, but I like picking out the meat and eating it and knowing I got some protein in for the day, right? And my husband goes shopping and he specifically said he's going to another store because they didn't have the meat that he wanted. So I'm thinking, great, he's going to get that meat, the chunks of meat. I'm going to put it in. And then when he comes home and he puts it down and I'm going through it, I see he bought ground meat. And I'm like, what? So I go I go into where he's sitting and I'm like, why'd you buy this meat? And he's like, what's wrong? I thought that's the meat we like putting in chulent. I don't like the other meat. I like that meat. We've always made such good chulent like that. And I'm like, oh, you're right. 100% you're right. Like we've always talked about how that makes such great chulent. Ground meat makes really good chulent. And it's great because the meat gets in everything. So you don't need those chunks of meat, right? And usually it's cheaper also. And it's great. And I'm like, you're 100% right. Yeah, I was just asking. He's like, no, you weren't. You were just asking. You came in here like, why'd you buy that meat? I'm like, you're right. Sorry. He was totally right. So what's it about? Ideally, in that moment, I could have come with that curiosity, right? I was half there, right? Why? Why this meat as opposed to the other meat? And not only in that moment would I have understood him instead of being angry and frustrated, I also would have been reminded of what, and perhaps even have learned, but I did know at that point, I was reminded that that's the one he likes better, right? That's the one he likes better. And honestly, if I'm making chillin', it's because he likes it. So I'm happy to make the one that he wants, right? So knowing that and then choosing, I'm going to choose to make the chillin' he likes, that's a moment of connection, right? That's where we can connect. But the only way I'm going to even learn that is if I don't go in there all attacking, is if I open my mind to not just get frustrated and resentful, but I actually get curious and ask him and and this can happen in so many ways. It can happen in the big things and the small things. How often do I hear, I was so frustrated with my husband. He did this, he did that. And I'm like, well, why did he do it? I don't know. I'm just going to assume he's crazy, right? I'm just going to assume he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm assuming that he is just wrong. And again, when we can stand for our husbands and come from the assumption that our husbands are not idiots, they're not out to get us, they're not trying to hurt us, then we can instead shift to a state of curiosity, a state of empathy, and then create connection in that moment. Okay, so I'd love to hear your thoughts and any questions, any specific incidents you want to be like, yeah, but what about this? Wow, the chat is empty. What's anything anyone want to share or bring up? Okay, but if you really wanted that meat, would you ask for him to go out? Should you then give in for the sake of love? That's a great question, Shoshana. I love that question, and that's why I was very clear when I said that I chose that I want to make the chillin' the way he does. If I would have really no, I really want that other meat. Like it really means a lot to me to have the other meat. Then I might have said, but I'd really love to put the other meat in. What do you think? And we could discuss it, right? If I end up making him, let's say next week, let's say we make a chillin again, right? If I decide if I when I'm making the decision, which meat am I going to put in the chulent? I have to check in with myself. Am I going to use the chulent meat that he likes because I want to? Because I want to do that for him because I want to make the chulent that he loves? Or am I going to put that chulent meat in, the ground meat, because I feel I have to? Because I'm scared of how he'll react if I use the other meat, or because I feel like I have to be the good wife and do that, or if I feel like I don't matter, it just has to be what he wants. If I'm doing it for any of those reasons, that's what leads to resentment, right? So that's where you may try to figure out, should I do half and half, 1 week and then the other week? Discuss it with him. Do you really mind? What is it about the meat you don't like? Can we work it out together? But if I'm doing it because I'd love to, and I really am happy to make the chillin the way he wants, then great. Giving is great when we're doing it because we want to, when we're giving with love. Got it? Awesome. Great question. Thank you, Shoshana. Okay. I found that when I see that that's his view, I feel really lonely. So I'm not sure what you mean by that, LGG7. I don't, such a pretty smile, but I don't. Remind me. You look so familiar. Do I know you? Have we met before? You don't know? Oh, do you want to unmute or you want to answer in the chat? You're happy to unmute? Okay, hold on. Let me find you. LG G7, because this sounds like a great question. Okay, I asked you to unmute.
Yeah, hi. Yeah,
Hi.
no, hello. I've seen you lots of times. I mean, you were messaging me on WhatsApp for a while, and then
Yeah?
yeah, then I looked you up finally on Facebook. So yeah, I
Oh,
guess that's
cool.
why you
Okay.
recognize me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I find that when I come to the conclusion of like, okay, like he sees it this way and I see it my way,
Mhm.
which I do a lot actually. I
Mhm.
find that like I end up feeling really lonely in that position. It makes me feel like, wow, like he's on this island, I'm on that island, and there's like he really doesn't understand me, and yeah,
Okay.
it's the difference. It's not an argument, right?
Right.
It's like I feel kind of sad. It makes me quite sad actually.
So it
So I
makes
wonder
you
where you can get connection in that
Okay, good question. So let me just make sure I'm
question.
understanding. You're saying that when you understand how he feels and you see that it's so different than how you feel, it makes you feel lonely that you see things so differently.
Yeah,
Did I
meaning
get
we're
that
not
right?
fighting. Like we're not going to fight
Right,
that, he bought,
right.
let's say, 17 hot dogs yesterday. Just an example. He was hungry
Yes.
when he went shopping, so he bought a lot of, like, way more than we needed. And I knew it would be
Mhm.
way more than we needed, and it was going to get barbecued. And then what's the point? It's going to go to the garbage. But I didn't
Yes.
say anything, and I just thought to myself, "Wow, we're like so different," you know.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it just that's all. I'm like, okay, no
Okay.
fighting, no, not at all. But we're just, gosh, this feels really, really, really lonely.
Yes.
That's what I'm
Yes.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm hearing, and you can see if this resonates with you, that perhaps this is touching on a certain expectation that you may
Mm,
have as to
yeah.
what marriage should
Right.
look like or
Yeah.
what a husband and wife should agree about.
Mm,
Yeah.
I hear that.
And if you have an expectation that we'll always agree, we'll always see everything the same way, We'll always see hot dogs the same way. We'll see child rearing the same way. We'll always want to send our
Mm.
kids to the same school and spend money the same way. And every decision we want to make, and everything we think will be the same. We'll always want to vote for the same people and spend our money the same way. Then when you don't, which is honestly bound to happen because you're two different people coming from two different realities,
Yeah,
that's going to be really painful.
sure. Okay.
So, what I would invite you to do is recognize when those expectations are showing up and
Mm.
and you can start to get curious where those expectations are coming from. And you can also create a new truth for yourself, meaning a new belief, instead of believing, let's say, we should agree on everything, you can create
Yeah.
a new belief that is allows you to feel connected because you know him as opposed to connected because you agree with each other.
So a connection because I know, even though I actually feel like a person is so deep, you can really never really know them. But okay,
You're
I hear
getting
that.
to know them, right?
Okay.
You're getting to
Okay.
know him or whatever serves you, right?
Yeah.
But it allows you to not feel because basically what you're sharing is going to make it feel like I should never get to know my husband because then I'll realize that we don't think the same and then I'll feel disconnected. So that will lead me to never asking him and never trying to understand him, which will leave you feeling
Yeah. Upset and sad.
disconnected, right? Not
Yeah.
right. Exactly. So
So
what
it
I
was
invite
interesting.
yeah,
Sorry. No, so
go
what
ahead.
happened was is that so this is what I tend to do. I tend to just really keep quiet. And I'm
Mhm.
just quiet, And then my husband is like, he generally doesn't notice that I'm really quiet, but after a while, like he'll be like, "Oh, you're really being quiet. You okay?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So so yesterday when he asked me like, "Are you're being really quiet? What's going on?" So I said to him, "I just feel really lonely, you know?"
Mhm.
And he said, "I don't know what you want me to do with that. Like, tell me what you want," which I
Mhm.
said, I didn't even know, but I said,
Mhm.
just, I said, if you could just talk, just like talk
Yeah.
about whatever,
Mhm.
maybe that will help. And it kind of did help. It kind of
Great.
did help. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely if we're not communicating, then we're going to
Yeah.
feel lonely, right? It's just a reality. The issue is that we often don't know how to communicate in a way that allows us to feel heard,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So what I'm going to invite you, I'm definitely happy to talk about this further. You can definitely, you said we've been in touch, so you're welcome to, make reach out to me. I can't just find, I'd love to find my link now to help you, but reach out to me. We can set up a time to talk about this further, but it's really a great question. And I thank you so much for bringing this forward. And
Oh,
I will invite you to check those expectations, right? Expectations are so they're so huge in our marriage. We don't even realize how much they're affecting us. And to see if you can shift the expectations into a new belief about your connection with your husband to one that will serve you, right? Where you can connect with him even when you don't agree, right? Okay, awesome. Great question. Thank you. And let me just see if we have time for more questions. Let me see. It feels like I'm the one who's trying to understand him and why is he doing these things? How do I get him to do the same for me? That's a great question. And it's a great question. So often when we are really trying to understand our husbands, um, they they don't feel understood, right? That's that. And when we're not making a safe space for him to be understood, it's going to be very hard. It's basically this ongoing negative spiral where if I don't understand you, I'm going to be constantly criticizing you or getting upset about how you're doing things, and then you'll feel defensive, so you will be constantly shielding yourself and not trying to understand how I see things. And now I'm feeling defensive and I don't feel like I have space and no one's trying to understand me. So then I feel defensive and I'm not going to try to understand you. And it keeps going on and on and on. It's a continuous pattern. The only way out of the cycle, honestly, is for someone to take the responsibility to end that. For someone to say, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm stepping out of that pattern. And no matter what, I want to be a woman of empathy. I want to be a woman who is curious. And out of integrity, I'm going to be that woman, whether you are doing it or not. And what you're doing in that moment is stepping out of the pattern. So that will shift things between the two of you, because as soon as he doesn't feel defensive, as soon as he doesn't feel that he has to constantly defend or protect the reasons why he's doing things, he will be able to breathe, right? We all know that feeling when we feel finally that we have the space to breathe, or we can imagine what it would be like to not have to defend or protect our way of doing things. That air, that that freedom can give him the space to do the same. Okay? So it's really making a choice that I am going to be that. I'm going to create that no matter what, and stick to it for as long, like just keep going. Because very often I see this over and over and over again with my clients. The moment when you feel like I can't do this for one more day, it's so hard, it's so just building up, you're right here, you're almost on the other side of this pattern, right? The it gets you like, just as the dam is about to break and the pattern is about to break, it can feel really hard, right? Because it's all that pressure, all the, like, he's just waiting and waiting for you to step right back in. And when you can resist that, that's when you get to the other side. Okay. Okay. Let me see. I can answer one more question. My husband has come to me saying, I'm curious, example, why you'll have Shabbos guests inside now, but it sounds judgy. So what I'm going to invite you to to do is request, like when he asks a question, even if it sounds judgy to you, to answer the question, unless he's actually unless he actually is spitting back like a quick response. He's not actually asking you. If he's asking, answer, and answer authentically and vulnerably. If he then right away replies back with a response, then you know he's not really open to hearing. And then you don't have to answer, right? So much of this is when is why it starts with empathy with ourselves. When you know what you feel and you know why you do what you do and the choices that you feel good about your choices, then you don't need to defend them and you don't need to get into an argument about them. Okay. So if he's asking that, if it turns into a fight, you can just say, I don't want to fight about this. But if he's asking, and it could be that it's just a new way, you're not used to it, or you're interpreting it as judgy, I'd invite you to at least dip your toe in and see if maybe he's really asking. And therefore, to answer without defensiveness, answer fully as a with that vulnerability and authenticity. Okay. Let me answer one more question. So how would I find connection in that difference? Okay, so I answered that question. So what is a good strategy for encouraging him to be curious rather than blaming in a way that didn't trigger defensiveness? I think I answered that question, right? Moshe, did I answer that through someone else already? Okay, so you can all try that. Just curious, how do you make chillin with ground beef? You just take a block of ground beef and you stick it in the chillet, and as you can mix it, but you don't really have to. And when you take the chillet out into the bowl, you break it up and you mix it up, and there's meat everywhere. It's amazing. So especially if you're trying to get your kids like chilling and you're trying to get protein in them, like the meat's everywhere. It's not, there's no fatty and stuff. You don't have to cut it. You just eat it. It's just like this yummy stew. And then the big benefit is, and I still have to do this, if you have leftovers after Shabbos and you made your children with ground meat, you know what you do? You buy taco shells and you warm it up in the crock pot or the frying pan and you eat it with taco shells. Oh my gosh, it's my kids' one of their favorite dinners, which is great because most people just throw out their leftover chillin'. You don't have to. You can make tacos. Okay. Um okay, so what I'm going to do with the rest of the questions is I am going to save them and add them to my questions list, and perhaps we'll have a whole other episode about those questions. So I really thank you. I promise I'm going to read the rest of the questions. I thank you all for being here. It's amazing to see all of you and have you all here, even if I don't actually see you. And it's so great to be on here and to connect with you every week. Hey, Beth, you came my camera. Yay. Amazing. Hi, Rochelle. Who else is here? Oh, amazing. Amazing, amazing. I love seeing you all. Okay, ladies, so we will see you next week, Be'ezrat Hashem, and keep your questions coming. I love seeing them. I love seeing you all here. And until then, may we all be blessed to live, love, and be loved with all our hearts. Goodbye for now.